I didn't invite you because, from today onward, you're no longer part of this family. Those were the words my mother, Eleanor, spoke when I asked why no one had told me about my younger sister's wedding. Just 3 days earlier, she had casually mentioned there would be an important family gathering. I never imagined that gathering would be my own sister's wedding. Confused, I drove to an elegant restaurant called Silver Oak Bistro, expecting nothing more than a family dinner. As I entered, my eyes landed on a beautifully decorated table. A gold-lettered sign read, "Congratulations, Amelia and Ethan." My heart skipped a beat. Amelia was my younger sister. For a brief moment, I convinced myself there had simply been a misunderstanding. Smiling, I walked over. "Congratulations. When's the ceremony? I can't believe you kept this a surprise." Silence. Every face at the table turned toward me. My father, Richard, my older sister, Claire, my younger sister, Amelia, and finally, my mother. The warmth I expected never came. Instead, Eleanor calmly placed a cream-colored envelope on the table and slid it toward me. "This," she said, without emotion, "is the only reason you're here." Beside her, Claire lifted her phone and pressed record. "I don't want to miss your reaction." The tiny red recording light pointed directly at my face. I slowly opened the envelope. Inside wasn't a wedding invitation. It was a legal document declaring that I was being permanently removed from the family. Every member of my family had signed it. For several seconds, nobody spoke. They waited for tears, for anger, for pleading. Instead, I quietly folded the document, placed it beside my plate, and smiled. In that instant, I realized something they never had. They thought they had taken everything from me. In reality, they had just freed me from carrying them. Without saying another word, I reached into my purse and unlocked my phone. Claire laughed. "What now? Calling your friends to cry about it?" I ignored her. Instead, I opened the financial dashboard for my company. No one at that table knew the truth. For years, while they mocked me as the family disappointment, I had spent countless late nights building an AI education platform called BrightPath Learning. The project had quietly grown into a thriving business with thousands of paying users. My family's opinions had never mattered to my success. Then I opened another file. Private loan agreement borrower, Amelia Carter, outstanding balance, 95,000. 2 years earlier, I had personally financed the launch of Amelia's floral design studio. Everything had been handled professionally with contracts, legal witnesses, and collateral. Business was business. Family had never thanked me. Now, family no longer existed. "What exactly are you doing, Arden?" my father demanded, his patience finally breaking. "Put the phone away. We're talking to you." I didn't answer. My attention remained fixed on the screen. Inside my banking app, I selected the clause labeled "Accelerated repayment due to contract violation." A confirmation window appeared. Reason for enforcement. I slowly typed, "Permanent loss of trust between both parties." Those words weren't chosen out of anger. They were copied exactly from the legal agreement, drafted years earlier. Ironically, the document my family had just handed me, their official notice cutting me out of their lives, was the strongest evidence that the clause now applied. Another message appeared. "Confirm Actioni." Pressed the button without hesitation. A few seconds later, the screen displayed, "Request successfully processed." I locked my phone, slipped it into my handbag, and calmly rose from my chair. The silence around the table was deafening. Looking directly at Amelia, I smiled. "I truly hope your wedding is everything you've dreamed of." None of them understood what those words really meant. To them, it sounded like a bitter farewell. To me, it was simply the beginning. After I left, they laughed. Claire mocked me. My parents dismissed me as a jealous daughter desperate for attention. Amelia convinced herself that I had finally accepted defeat. They celebrated their victory without realizing they had just triggered the first domino. The following morning, the cracks quietly began to appear. An email arrived from Amelia's largest overseas flower supplier. "Payment declined. Please contact your financial institution immediately to avoid shipment cancellation." She rolled her eyes. Another banking error. The next day, her business credit card stopped working. A day after that, the leasing company managing her boutique informed her that the upcoming rent payment had failed. Every hour seemed to bring another problem. Suppliers delayed deliveries, automatic payments bounced, account balances shrank, cash flow disappeared almost overnight. The emergency repayment clause had frozen the financial foundation, holding her business together. Still, Amelia refused to believe it. This is just Arden trying to scare me, she kept telling herself. Once the wedding is over, everything will go back to normal. She repeated those words often enough that she almost believed them. Meanwhile, I wasn't focused on revenge. I was focused on evidence. Together with my attorney, Mr. Hayes, I reviewed years of financial records, every agreement, every signed receipt, every bank transfer, 5 years earlier, when my parents nearly lost their home after my father's business collapsed. I had quietly paid their mortgage for months. Not once had they acknowledged it. Fortunately, digital records never forget. Everything was organized into a single file. If they wanted to erase me from the family, I would simply reveal the truth they had spent years hiding. A week later, the wedding finally arrived. The ceremony overlooked the sea, decorated with white roses, elegant candles, and rows of perfectly arranged tables. Guests laughed, champagne flowed, a string quartet filled the air with soft music. To everyone watching, the Rowan family appeared flawless, proud parents, a radiant bride, a successful family celebrating another happy milestone. Only Amelia knew something wasn't right. Every few minutes, she secretly checked her phone. Unread messages from banks, suppliers, collection notices. Her smile never quite reached her eyes. Just as the couple prepared for the traditional champagne toast, movement near the entrance caught everyone's attention. The music faded. Heads turned. I walked inside wearing a simple navy evening dress. No invitation. No announcement. Just quiet confidence. Because regardless of what they had declared, everyone present still knew exactly who I was. The expressions on my family's faces changed. Instantly, confidence became panic. Amelia looked as though she'd seen a ghost. Claire's jaw tightened. My father's eyes burned with anger, ignoring them. I walked forward with a gentle smile. Congratulations, Amelia. My voice carried clearly across the courtyard. I wouldn't miss my little sister's wedding. Claire was the first to speak. What are you doing here? I reached into my handbag and removed a folded document. Carefully, I unfolded it. I brought the wonderful gift you gave me last week. The paper caught the breeze. The official notice declaring I was no longer part of the family. Guests exchanged confused glances. Whispers spread from table to table. I stepped onto the stage before anyone could stop me. A nearby microphone rested on its stand. Picking it up, I smiled warmly. Thank you all for joining today's celebration. My name is Arden Rowan. I'm the bride's older sister. I'd like to tell you a little story about how this family's success actually began. Silence settled over the venue. I continued. Many of you know Amelia as the talented owner of Bloom and Briar Floral Studio. Several customers nodded proudly. I agree. She worked hard, but every dream has a starting point. I lifted another document. 2 years ago, I personally financed the launch of that business. The amount was $95,000. It wasn't a gift. It was a formal loan. Gasps echoed through the audience. Faces turned toward Amelia, then toward my parents, then back to me. I never asked for public recognition, but since my family decided to publicly erase me, I believe the full story deserves to be heard. I displayed the signed agreement. The contract clearly states that if trust between borrower and lender is permanently broken, the remaining balance becomes immediately payable. I paused long enough for everyone to absorb the words. 1 week ago, my family officially informed me that I was no longer one of them. I raised the disownment letter. They provided all the proof I legally needed, so the repayment clause was activated. Amelia's legs gave out beneath her. She collapsed onto the floor, clutching her wedding dress as stunned guests looked on in disbelief. The ceremony had become something entirely different, and I wasn't finished. Slowly, I turned toward my parents. This wasn't the only time I stood behind this family. I tightened my grip on the microphone, my voice steady despite the storm building around me. Most of you know my parents as respected members of this community. I looked toward them. You've visited their beautiful home. You've admired their success. You've probably believed everything they wanted the world to believe. The crowd remained silent, but there's one chapter of that story you've never heard. My father took a step forward. That's enough, Arden. His words carried desperation rather than authority. I continued anyway. 5 years ago, after a disastrous investment, that very house was days away from being taken by the bank. A ripple spread through the audience. I wasn't asked to help. I simply couldn't watch my family lose everything. For 9 straight months, I quietly covered the mortgage. I placed my hand against my chest. No one else. I paid it. The venue became so quiet that even the wind outside seemed louder. I never expected applause. I never wanted recognition. I believed helping family was simply the right thing to do. I slowly unfolded the disownment letter, and this, I held it high enough for everyone nearby to see, was their way of saying thank you. No one spoke. The carefully polished image, the Rowan family had spent years protecting, cracked in front of hundreds of witnesses. The admiration on many faces disappeared, replaced by disbelief. Others looked openly disappointed. My parents stood motionless. For the first time in years, they had no words. Suddenly, Amelia collapsed into tears, real or rehearsed. It was impossible to tell. She covered her face before looking toward the guests. Please don't believe everything she's saying. Her voice trembled dramatically. Yes, she loaned me money. And yes, she helped my parents once. She paused to wipe away tears. But she never did those things out of kindness. She wanted control. She always hated that our parents loved me more. Everything she gave came with invisible strings. A few sympathetic guests exchanged uncertain glances. Amelia continued. She couldn't stand seeing me happy. So she waited until my wedding to destroy my life. I'm the one being punished. My parents hurried beside her, wrapping comforting arms around her shoulders. For a brief moment, it looked as though the story might shift in their favor. Then another voice interrupted. Excuse me. Everyone turned. A woman near the front slowly stood. She was a well-known lifestyle writer whose recommendations influenced thousands of readers. She looked directly at Amelia. Something doesn't make sense. The room fell silent again. I interviewed you just last month. You proudly said your flower business was built entirely with your own savings. You specifically told me no one financed your dream. Several customers nodded immediately. She told us the same thing. We admired her independence. The blogger turned toward me. I've also followed Arden's work. She's the founder of an educational technology platform that's been gaining national attention. I've read several articles about her. Then she looked back at Amelia. So which story should we believe? The one you sold to the public? Or the one we're hearing today? Amelia opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Her carefully constructed image began collapsing piece by piece. The tears that had moments earlier seemed convincing now looked like panic. She wasn't losing an argument. She was losing credibility. I spoke once more. This has never been about jealousy. It has always been about accountability. I unlocked my phone and briefly displayed a message from my attorney. The repayment notice has already been delivered. The legal process officially began a week ago. I slipped the phone back into my pocket. The contract allows 10 days for repayment. If the balance isn't settled, the collateral will be recovered, and the remaining debt will proceed through the courts. No anger. No shouting. Just facts. I placed the microphone back onto its stand. Without another word, I walked off the stage. Behind me, Amelia called out, Arden, wait. We can fix this. I paused only long enough to answer. You already sent your decision. This is simply mine. I kept walking. Outside the venue, the cool ocean breeze felt lighter than it had in years. A courier carrying official legal documents walked past me toward the entrance. Our eyes met briefly. He continued inside. I got into my car, started the engine, and drove away without looking back. That night wasn't about revenge. It was about finally letting go. The following weeks were remarkably peaceful. Life became quiet in a way I had almost forgotten was possible. One afternoon, my attorney sent me a brief message with a news article attached. The headline read, A family's public image crumbles after wedding day. Scandali read it without emotion. Amelia's marriage had ended before it truly began. Her flower shop had closed after mounting financial problems. The vehicle listed as collateral had been repossessed and sold. My father's professional reputation suffered serious damage, and invitations for public appearances quickly disappeared. Even the luxurious house they once considered untouchable had been listed for sale. When I reached the end of the article, I simply closed the browser. There was no satisfaction and no resentment, only acceptance. Some endings don't feel dramatic, they simply feel complete. I turned back to my workspace. 3 monitors displayed the latest activity on BrightPath Learning. Students from around the world were solving problems, completing lessons, and reaching goals they once believed impossible. Each success reminded me why I had built the platform in the first place. To create opportunities, not appearances. Outside my window, city lights shimmered against the evening sky. Years ago, I thought happiness depended on being accepted by the people who shared my last name. Now I understood something far more valuable. Real family isn't defined by blood. Real success isn't measured by status. And sometimes the strongest person in the room is the one who quietly closes the door, walks away, and never feels the need to open it again.